He's right there. He took my backpack. You have to stop him.
Easy, son. We're gonna find him. Just breathe.
Jake Morrison was halfway through his eggs when the cafe door exploded open with tremendous force, sending the overhead bell flying off its hinges with a metallic crash. A small child, perhaps 8 years old, stumbled inside frantically. His jacket was ripped. One sneaker was gone. His bare feet were cut and bleeding from sprinting across rough pavement. His face was streaked with tears and grime. "Please save her," he screamed, his voice breaking with desperation. "They're hurting my mama!" The entire cafe fell silent. Utensils froze midair. Coffee mugs halted at people's mouths. Everyone gawked at the sobbing child, whose terror filled the space. But while other patrons remained frozen in shock, uncertain what to do, the 9 bikers rose immediately. Chairs scraped loudly against the floor. Heavy boots struck the tiles. Jake approached and knelt down to the boy's level, making himself less threatening. "Where is she, buddy?" His voice was gentle, but intensely serious. The boy pointed with a trembling hand across the street to a deteriorating motel parking lot. "Room 18, my mama's boyfriend. He's beating her badly. Please, sir, please help her." Jake looked back at his brothers. 9 pairs of eyes met his, and they all nodded. No words were necessary. They had sworn an oath years ago when forming this club. Safeguard those who cannot safeguard themselves, especially children, especially women. "We've got you, kid," Jake said, standing up. "Sonny, contact 911 right now." The motel across the street was the type where people minded their own business and kept their blinds shut tight. Peeling paint covered the walls, and the parking lot was riddled with cracks and holes. Room 18 was easy to locate because horrific sounds emanated from within. A man's voice screaming with fury, a woman's voice crying and pleading him to stop. The awful sound of fists connecting with flesh. The boy Tommy started to run ahead, but one of the bikers gently restrained him. "You wait here, buddy. Let us handle this." Jake didn't bother with knocking. He raised his boot and kicked the door completely open. It slammed against the interior wall with a boom that echoed across the parking lot. "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." The man, David Ross, spun around quickly. His eyes were wild with alcohol and rage. "Get out of here! This is between me and my woman. None of your business." "She's not your woman," Jake said calmly, as 9 bikers filled the small room behind him, blocking the only escape route. Their presence made the room feel even more cramped. "And you just made it our business when her kid came running for assistance." David was big and clearly thought his size made him formidable. He sneered at the bikers. "You think you intimidate me? I've been in prison. I fought guys twice as tough as you." He swung a wild punch at Jake's face. Terrible choice. Extremely terrible choice. Jake caught David's fist in midair, twisted the arm with practiced precision, and slammed David face first into the wall. One clean, efficient move. David dropped to his knees, dazed and confused about what just occurred. 2 bikers immediately grabbed David's arms and held him down. Another biker, a man named Wheels, who used to be an army medic in Afghanistan, rushed over to check on the woman. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Where does it hurt the worst?" Wheels asked gently, his trained eyes scanning her injuries. "My chest," she gasped, struggling to breathe. "He kicked me there. And Tommy, where's Tommy?" "Right here, Mama." The boy pushed past Snake, the biker who'd been holding him back, and threw himself at his mother. He wrapped his small arms around her, as carefully as he could, crying harder now. "I got help, Mama. The bikers came. You're safe now. You're safe." The woman, Maria Santos, held her son tight with one arm, despite the terrible pain shooting through her body. Tears streamed down her bruised face as she looked up at Jake with her one good eye. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. He would have killed me this time. I know he would have." Jake nodded once, his jaw tight. "Not today. Not ever again." Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air. Sheriff Mike Rodriguez pulled up in his patrol car with an ambulance right behind him. Rodriguez was a good man who knew the Iron Wolves well. They did charity rides every year, helped with toy drives for kids at Christmas, and never caused any trouble in his county. "What happened here, Jake?" the sheriff asked, surveying the scene with experienced eyes. "Kid ran into Sonny's cafe, crying for help," Jake explained simply. "His mama's boyfriend was beating her. We found David here doing exactly that. We stopped him. That's the whole story." The sheriff looked at David, still being held by two bikers, then at Maria, being carefully loaded onto a stretcher by paramedics. Tommy refused to let go of her hand and climbed into the ambulance with her. Rodriguez had responded to calls about David Ross before, 3 times in the past 6 months, actually. Each time, Maria had been too scared to press charges. "Maria," the sheriff said gently, "do you want to press charges this time?" Maria looked at David, who was glaring at her with pure hatred, burning in his bloodshot eyes. Then she looked at the wall of bikers standing between her and danger. 9 men she didn't even know who had risked themselves to save her. "Yes," she said, and her voice was stronger than it had been in months. "I want to press charges for everything he's done." The sheriff smiled grimly. "Good. David Ross, you're under arrest for assault, battery, and about 6 other charges I'll think of on the way to the station." As David was hauled away in handcuffs, still struggling against the officers, he shouted back at Maria with venom in his voice. "I'll be out tomorrow. I'll make bail and I'll find you. You can't hide from me." "No," Jake said quietly, stepping between David and the ambulance. "You won't." That evening, Jake and 2 of his brothers visited the county hospital. They found Maria in a room on the 4th floor. Tommy was curled up beside her on the narrow hospital bed, both of them sleeping peacefully. Probably the first real rest either of them had gotten in months. The first sleep without fear. A nurse named Carol approached them quietly in the hallway. "You're the bikers who saved her, aren't you?" "We helped," Jake said, feeling uncomfortable with being called a hero. Carol's eyes were fierce with emotion. "She told me everything while we were treating her. That monster has been terrorizing her for 8 months straight. She tried to leave him twice before. Both times he found her and beat her even worse. She was running out of options, running out of hope." "She's got options now," Jake said firmly. "She's got hope now, too." When Maria finally woke up an hour later, she immediately started crying again, but not from physical pain. It was relief mixed with fear. "He'll make bail," she said, her voice shaking. "He always does. His brother owns a bail bonds company. He'll be out by tomorrow morning, and he knows where I live. He knows where I work. He knows everything about me." Jake pulled up a chair and sat down beside her bed. "Not this time. And even if he somehow does get out, I promise you he'll have to go through all of us first. And we don't plan on moving." "I don't understand," Maria said, confusion mixing with gratitude. "Why are you doing this for us? You don't even know who we are." Jake glanced at Tommy, still sleeping peacefully beside his mother. "Your boy had real courage today. He could have frozen. He could have hidden. Instead, he ran for help. That took guts. Can't walk away from courage like that." The Iron Wolves called an emergency meeting at their clubhouse that same night. 25 members showed up within an hour. Word had spread fast about the motel rescue, and everyone wanted to know what happened next. Maria Santos and her son Tommy need our protection, Jake explained to the group. David will probably make bail within a few days. When he does, he'll come looking for them. She has no money saved up because she's been running from him for months. She has no family in this area, no safe place to go. The club president, a tough Vietnam veteran named Tank, leaned back in his chair and thought carefully. What exactly are you proposing? Full club protection. We find her a safe apartment, help her get back on her feet financially, and we make damn sure David understands that touching her again means dealing with all of us. One member, a younger guy named Razor, objected. Look, I feel bad for her, but we're not a charity organization. We all have our own families to worry about and protect. That little boy ran to us, Jake said, his voice sharp and firm. When he was terrified and desperate, he looked at us and saw help. He trusted us when everyone else in that cafe just sat there and did nothing. We answered his call. We can't betray that trust now by walking away. Tank studied Jake's face for a long moment, then looked around the room at the other members. The Iron Wolves had always had a code, a set of rules they lived by. Protect the vulnerable, especially women and kids trying to escape abuse. It's what separated them from criminal motorcycle gangs. It's what gave them respect in their community. Motion passes, Tank finally said. Jake, you're the point man on this operation. Figure out what they need and make it happen. By Monday morning, the rescue had hit every local news channel. Biker saves woman from brutal assault played on repeat. The cafe security footage showed Tommy running in desperately, showed the bikers' immediate response without hesitation, showed them emerging from the motel with Maria safely away from her attacker. Public perception of the Iron Wolves shifted overnight. These weren't the dangerous outlaws people sometimes imagined when they saw motorcycle clubs. They were men who'd stopped for Saturday breakfast and ended up saving lives. Sunny started a fundraiser right there at the cafe. She put a jar on the counter with Tommy's crayon drawing taped to it. By the end of the week, the community had donated $18,000. Enough money for first and last month's rent on an apartment, security deposits, furniture, and a financial safety net. While Maria got back on her feet, the Iron Wolves found Maria a small 2-bedroom apartment in a secured building across town, far from anywhere David would think to look. They installed extra deadbolts on the door, gave her emergency contact numbers for all 25 members, and made it crystal clear to everyone, if David or anyone else threatened this woman or her son, 50 bikers would respond immediately. Tommy drew a picture for each biker using his crayons. Images of motorcycles and stick figure heroes with big smiles. He gave Jake's drawing to him personally. It showed a tall man in black leather vest helping a small boy in a red shirt. Thank you was spelled out in shaky letters across the top. Jake, a tough man who'd seen combat in Iraq and 20 hard years on the road, felt his eyes sting with tears. He cleared his throat. This is going on my refrigerator at home. Kid, right where I can see it every single day. And that's it. All we're saying is, we hope you for it. 4 days later, exactly as Maria had predicted, David made bail. His brother paid the bond company, and David walked out of jail at 8 o'clock in the morning. But when he tried to find Maria, he hit walls everywhere he turned. Her old apartment was empty. Her old phone number was disconnected. Her new address was unlisted. She had a new job at a company that happened to be owned by one of the Iron Wolves members. Security systems protected her building. Systems David couldn't breach. And 50 bikers had made it very clear throughout town. Approach Maria Santos or Tommy again and face consequences that go way beyond legal trouble. David tried filing a harassment complaint against the Iron Wolves, claiming they threatened him illegally. Sheriff Rodriguez actually laughed when he read it. "You beat a woman in a motel parking lot in front of multiple witnesses, including her 8-year-old son," Rodriguez said flatly. "These bikers stopped you from potentially killing her. That's not harassment, David. That's called civic duty. Case dismissed." Realizing he was beaten, David finally left town. He was last spotted 2 states away in Arizona. Finally understanding that Maria Santos was completely untouchable. Now, Maria got a job as a waitress at Sonny's Cafe, the exact place where her salvation had begun. Sonny was so impressed by Maria's resilience and work ethic that she paid her fairly and provided flexible hours so Maria could match Tommy's school schedule. Tommy started 2nd grade at a school near their new apartment. On his first day, the Iron Wolves escorted him, not aggressively or intimidating anyone. Just 9 motorcycles forming a protective barrier that announced clearly to any potential threat, "This child is protected by people who will not hesitate to act." The other 2nd graders thought it was the coolest thing they'd ever seen. Tommy beamed with pride all day. 1 year after the rescue, Sonny's Cafe held a celebration. Maria stood up to speak publicly for the first time since everything happened. "A year ago, my son ran into this place begging strangers for help. These bikers didn't hesitate, even for a second. They gave us our lives back. They gave us hope." Tommy stepped forward, holding a painted version of his original crayon drawing. It showed 9 bikers surrounding a woman and child, protecting them from darkness with words reading, "Sometimes heroes ride Harleys." He handed it to Jake. "For your clubhouse, so you never forget what you did for us." The crowd erupted in applause. Jake knelt down and pulled Tommy into a tight hug. "You were the real hero, kid. You had the courage to ask for help when it mattered most. Never forget that." Sometimes the bravest cry for help interrupts the quietest morning. What begins as breakfast among strangers ends as a rescue that transforms lives forever. Real heroes answer calls they never expected to receive. If this story moved you, hit that like, subscribe, and bell icon. Tell us in the comments, would you stand up for a stranger like these bikers did? Until next time, ride safe and stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. A terrified 8-year-old boy burst through the doors of a highway diner, begging strangers to save his mother from a brutal beating. What happened next would transform an entire community and prove that heroes sometimes ride Harley-Davidsons. Sonny's Cafe sat along Route 95, a popular stop for long-haul drivers seeking strong coffee and hearty meals. On this particular Saturday morning, 9 members of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club were enjoying their usual breakfast in the corner booth. Their patched jackets and gleaming bikes outside were common sights to owner Sonny, who'd served them faithfully for over a decade without incident.